Hey, it's Soul, and we're going to answer your questions about gathering in the War Within, except for whatever I missed. We'll cover the things you should know and do before deciding to take up mining, skinning, and herbalism. The H in herb is really soft, sorry. And then we're going to cover early leveling and specializations to consider and get into more specific builds depending on what it is that you want to farm up the most. This is part of a series of profession guides, and the playlist is in the upper right hand corner and down in the video description. If this turns out to be useful, please like the video and share it with others. Subscribe for more WoW coverage and catch me over on Twitch for a chat. And leave your questions and comments and questions in case I get something wrong or I miss something. The first question to ask is gathering going to really make gold? The short answer is yes. In fact, from all my research into professions so far, gathering is being set up to be a winner, even many months later when typically the market is saturated with materials. Now, of course, I'm just a WoW content creator, commentator person. I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert, but I'll try to explain why gathering is positioned to turn out great in the War Within. In the Dragonflight era of gathering, we got accustomed to seeing lots of rank 2 and 3 materials available. Rank 3s were more expensive, but not that much more expensive. Meanwhile, rank 1 materials were sometimes more expensive than rank 2s or even rank 3s, even though there was less of it in the market. So why was that? The WoW team made a few missteps, and unfortunately they kind of screwed up the market. So for one, gatherers were able to eventually skill themselves up to a point where they don't even see rank 1 materials anymore at all, just rank 2s and rank 3s. So it made the rank 1 materials not just undesirable, but also very rare. It made them effectively obsolete materials that no one would want to buy anyway, which is why the prices wouldn't at least, kind of sort of go down. And because rank 1 stopped dropping after a while, gatherers I guess they just tossed the materials into the auction house and they didn't look back when they could have at least maybe refined those materials instead. Mistake number 2 is inspiration. Inspiration gave a bonus where, for example, an alchemist trying to make a rank 2 potion could make it a rank 3 if they were lucky. Inspiration started off kind of cool. It meant that one didn't need rank 3 materials if the crafter could make it up with inspiration. It also made the stat very powerful. In fact, it was so powerful that rank 3 materials became less desirable altogether, because many crafters or clients, they used the much more available rank 2 materials and inspiration to just brute force high-level crafts. So what's changed? 1. Rank 1 materials will continue to drop and even make up a majority of what's found by gatherers. I couldn't do a complete study myself, but from reports, we can expect the ratios of ranked materials to be something close to 50, 30, and 20, when it comes to the ranks. That means lots of rank 1 materials will be in the market, while the amount of rank 2 and 3 materials will virtually be cut in half compared to Dragonflight. And we can call this like a fix or a rebalancing or just a straight up nerf. All those claims are correct. As the gatherer, you will have considerable control of supply thanks to refining, which was mostly useless in Dragonflight, but in the War Within, refining materials into higher qualities might be viable. The other big change lies with crafting requirements, and notably the switch from luck-based inspiration to the more deterministic concentration resource. I'm going to jump straight into an example. Here we have a blacksmith trying to make alloy. It's eventually used for high-level recipes. Now they've got the best tools, they've got max skill level, they have full specialization in order to make this alloy great. If a client only gives them rank 2 ore, sure, they can still make the alloy at a rank 3, but they'll have to spend concentration in order to make it at its highest quality. When they run out of concentration, well, that's it. They can't use that material to make the rank 3 alloy. On the other hand, if they're given rank 3 materials, that master crafter can make that alloy without spending concentration at all. Ergo, even master crafters who want to keep crafting will need rank 3 materials, meaning a constant demand for you. Even in a freak situation where the economy consumes rank 3 materials too fast, that's where you'll come in and save the day with refining materials, giving use for those rank 1s and 2s that there might be too much of. I can see how Blizzard's trying to position Gathering to have a lot more longevity with greater scarcity and greater demand for high-ranked materials, tipping the scales heavily in favor of gatherers. Of course, we can't fully predict what gamers are going to do. They might reject ranks altogether, and maybe they'll just settle for low rank gear to get them by before better drops come around, or they'll feel priced out altogether. In the early stages of this expansion though, no one's going to know any better, and you're probably going to make stupid amounts of gold in the first few months minimum. Before we get overly specific, let's talk some general tips and information that apply to all three gathering professions. There are certain things between them that are similar, others very different, of course, but we should start off by asking ourselves just who should be our gatherer and what can we do to start off real strong. So let's start off with what race to choose. Tauren are better herbalists, High Mountain Tauren are better miners, Worgen are better skinners, and by better I mean they have a higher maximum skill cap and increased gathering speed. Kultirans, by the way, get a smaller bonus for all professions, but they don't have that increased gathering speed. The Drakthir have a slightly higher chance at finding rare materials, aka perception, but if you go Drakthir, that means you're going Evoker, and that might not be everyone's cup of tea, at least not until they expand race class combos. I'm gonna guess we'll see an update to that no later than Season 2 of The War Within. When they're unlocked shortly into the expansion, the Earthen have a higher chance of obtaining bonus materials. It's like having more finesse. Overall though, the racial advantages, they're minimal, but they're still advantages. So if you can afford to customize for a perfect race, I say go for it. Druids, and we're talking about classes now, Druids used to be at the top of the heap, enjoying mounted herbalism while in flight form, and this still works in The War Within. But so does the Sky Golem, now that most mounts are usable with Skyriding. You're still going to be out of luck when it comes to mining, but going as a druid or using a Sky Golem, it means you can hold off on specializing in mounted gathering for herbalism should you choose to do so. But I should also mention Skyriding versus Steady Flight. Skyriding is available almost immediately into the main campaign. As of the posting of this video, Steady Flight does have a few requirements. You need to complete the main campaign and open up the map in all 4 zones in The War Within. So it's not going to be the months-long wait and teasing that we had in past expansions. It lightens up with unlocking adventure mode, which is also a thing, and we'll go over that shortly. In my testing of Steady Flight versus Skyriding, I found Steady Flight to be just fine. It just works, right? At 400% speed, it feels fast enough that I can zip between nodes without any problem, but I was also doing both mining and herbalism in my testing, meaning I'm making that many more stops. The times I really felt like I wanted faster flying was when I wanted to go to another zone entirely. The way I see it, it's like a preference thing. When I gather, it's like I want to turn my brain off a little bit, and I don't want to think about switching between this style or that style, even if there was no cast time at all. At least, that's how I am when I'm farming. Additional rare materials can also be found while gathering. These are used in all sorts of recipes, so you can kind of think of this as the awakened material things from Dragonflight. I'm sure there's more information than what I was able to research, but here's what I know. There are 4 materials. Viridescent spores and leyline residue are found primarily from herbalism. Writing samples and crystalline powder are found mostly by mining, but can also be found through herbalism from the special overcharged nodes. I happen to find a few viridescent spores while skinning, but skinners will be obtaining rare materials through lures just like in Dragonflight. I'll talk about that later. Shown on screen are what I'm seeing are the biggest uses of each material. All the materials will get a lot of use for the creation of profession accessories and high-level gear. Leyline residue might be used the least, and I'm just taking a guess here. I think viridescent spores will have the lowest supply, since it's mostly gathered by herbalism, and between treatises and missives, it's probably going to be consumed a lot. Again, just a guess, but this might influence how you specialize your gatherers. Here's some other tips and advice. It's not a bad idea to have good gathering tools from Dragonflight going into The War Within. Notice how Dragonflight tools, they only add Dragon Isle's gathering skill, but it's not the same story for the secondary stats. They happen to work. Now, of course, this isn't something you want to stress over though, don't break your bank trying to do this, because even the basic War Within tools and accessories are superior. But if you can make these tools for cheap ahead of time, as in in the coming 20 days before or so, yeah, might as well. Once you do get around to crafting tools, you'll want to go with either Perception or Finesse as the base stat and the enchant, depending on the spec that you're going for. And there are special bags made by tailors to improve your gathering skills. A dual crafter can equip 2 of these without any trouble, but it's not necessary for all of you to pick this up. I'd say if you can take advantage of slightly shorter cooldowns of overloads and sharpen your knife, you can pick this up sooner than later. Otherwise, take your time or skip out on these entirely. On your first playthrough in the War Within, I suggest unlocking Steady Flight and completing the campaign first on a non-gathering character. Doing so is going to unlock adventure mode across your entire account. This means all of your future characters, like your gatherers, won't be forced to play through the campaign. They can venture into like any zone, they can fly however they like, and the zones will scale to their level. There are areas in each zone that are for max level content only, you want to keep that in mind, but you can opt to lock your level and enjoy gathering everywhere else as you please. Farming away with very high combat ratings until you want to maximize your gathering potential with like better stats and higher skill from the newer profession tools. As you're gathering, you'll gain levels and eventually a skill up to max and unlock every specialization branch. You want to make sure you immediately unlock them as you go to get the starting benefit from that branch. For example, while skinning, the tanning tree immediately unlocks an ability to guarantee your next skin will provide a rare material. The luring tree immediately unlocks the ability to create and set lures. When you first unlock specializations at skill level 25, you'll also unlock weekly gathering quests. You want to make sure you do those each week. And that's pretty much the extent of the how to level portion of this guide, just get out there and farm. Just like in Dragonflight, you'll periodically collect knowledge points at a rate of something like 7 or 8 a week via gathering. Unlike Dragonflight though, there's no dragon shards of knowledge to hard farm, so there's no getting ahead of others by no-lifing the profession. But I also want to point out profession treatises made from the inscription profession. They're back and they provide knowledge for professions at a rate of 1 per week. Also, there's a profession catch-up in place, and here's what I mean by catch-up. If the expansion is 4 weeks in and you create a brand new character, even after obtaining the normal weekly knowledge, you can keep harvesting and randomly you'll receive more knowledge tokens. I'm not quite sure how much we can get caught up, but I'm confident it'll be a very reasonable distance away from people who have been constantly playing. Going back to inscription treatises though, I was unable to confirm if there's any relationship between these and how catch-ups work. For now, I'm just going to suggest that you rely on treatises each week to maximize your knowledge gains. Knowledge is found elsewhere too. A total of 8 profession treasures can be found throughout Khaz-Algar, 2 in each zone. I'll direct you to handy notes for all their locations, and none of them are in very weird or inaccessible places. The Artisan Consortium vendor sells a number of books at the cost of Artisan Acuity, that's replacing Artisan Metal. There's a second vendor who sells books all the way down in Aj-Kehet. Purchasing those requires a currency called Kej. Fortunately, that's transferable across the warband, so access to that isn't so tough at all. All in all, it's going to be possible to get around 50 or so knowledge points early on. It's going to be enough for you to get close to mastering, or at least getting close to mastering something. Artisan Acuity, by the way, is earned when collecting knowledge by gathering or using skill books. It's not gained off of getting profession treasures, so there goes your idea of trying to, roll multiple professions and trying to cheese Acuity. Characters new to the expansion will receive a quest introducing them to the Artisan Consortium and crafting orders, and it awards a one-time thing of 200 Acuity to get started right away. And Acuity serves 3 purposes. It's the creation of profession tools, which go for about 300 Acuity each, the purchasing of skill books, as I just mentioned, and to spend at the Artisan Consortium for resource bags. There are going to be some decisions to make at the start, like if you want to save up a bit more Acuity to make a high-end gathering tool or to spend it on skill books as you go. Now, personally, I think that going for skill books is the better play, because while the skill and stat boosts are really nice, I'd rather be unlocking special traits for my professions. In either case, you should spend your Acuity as you get them. The earlier the investment, the greater the payoff long term. The rest of this guide will assume you have max skill level and roughly 50 knowledge points to start with. Let's finally talk about the individual professions, which share a lot of commonalities with Dragonflight Gathering with a few changes. Let's start with Herbalism. Herbalism in the War Within is comprised of 5 collectible herbs: Blessing Blossom, Lure Drop, Myco Bloom, Orbinid, and Arathor Spear. Null Blossom is a rare herb that can be found when farming any node. Many of the herbs can be found in most zones, notably Myco Bloom, which is the common herb of the expansion. These herbs are kind of regional. From testing, I wasn't able to find Orbinid or Lure Drop in Dorne at all, but I did find it in other zones. And here's a breakdown of my findings where you can find each herb, but on occasion I have seen sightings of herbs outside the norm. There are 3 specific trees. Bountiful Harvest puts a focus on skill bonuses for each individual herb and allows refining. Botany is where you get bonuses to Finesse and Perception, using mulch to improve your gathers, as well as seed planting, which is improved since Dragonflight. And overloading the underground gives bonuses to gathering from special nodes and perks from using the overload cooldown. I'd say if you want to go for the highest overall skill using the least amount of points, pump knowledge into the base traits for bountiful harvest and overloading the underground. These will increase your bonuses for all gathering nodes with the exception of lush nodes, getting you that much closer to obtaining rank 3 materials without needing to be too picky over what to pick up. I think this is ideal for the early game when people are mostly panic buying. From here I'll point out traits that caught my attention. By maxing out Myco Bloom under Bountiful Harvest, you'll get a greater chance of finding the rare Null Lotus. It sounds like a good idea to get this perk for the most common herb, right? Under Botany, Cultivation is where you can invest into a massive perception bonus for all your gathering while getting a higher chance of obtaining seeds. The quick thing on seeds is there's an area in Howlfall where you can plant these seeds. These instantly blossom to be picked up right away. On the other side of this tree is where you can learn how to create mulch. There are 3 kinds and they give bigger and bigger bonuses to your finesse on your next gather. Personally, I'd be cool with at least picking up the initial trait and just make the cheap mulch using Myco Bloom and then use it on whatever is the most valuable herb that I'm seeing. The overload tree was never something I found super attractive, not even during Dragonflight, and it's not because it sucked, but because other paths like the ones that I just mentioned, they feel like better choices to take first, know what I mean? That said, I've personally found myself seeing more crystallized and irradiated nodes while gathering than the altered and spore fused. In my head, I think I'm going to save this tree for later in my career and mostly put points to increase the cooldown reduction, and that's probably it. But I do have one rule, and that's to mostly save your overloads for the altered nodes. They spawn a nasty creature to kill, which drops writhing samples. It's a rare material that might actually go for a decent price. So I mostly suggest going for base skills first, it's more bang for the buck, followed by maxing Myco Bloom for finding Null Blossom. And from there, it kind of depends on your play habits or even your favorite zone. Moving on to mining, there are 3 kinds of collectible ore: bismuth, ironclaw, and acarite. A nullstone can appear as a rare drop, but early on you'll be finding imperfect nullstones that you'll need to combine to create said stone. Bismuth and ironclaw can be found everywhere, while acarite is mostly found in Howlfall and Aj-Kahet. The spec tree shares some similarities to Herbalism. Plethora of ore is where you look for raw skill bonuses and refining. Mining fundamentals is where you seek quantity and provides extra skill bonuses to rich type deposits and seams. Mastering the Mysterious is the overload tree, and just like Herbalism, I suggest focusing on skill bonuses to up your quality gathers. That's going to mean maxing out Plethora of ore, followed by Mastering the Mysterious. Bismuth is the common ore in the War Within, which is why I'd suggest maxing out its specialization under Plethora of Ore so you can get the highest chance early on to amass null stones to sell. On the other hand, maybe you want to go for the tougher to get acarite, but whatever the case, you might be spending lots of time in this tree, as unlike Herbalism, there are separate abilities for refining each of the 3 ore. Yeah, that's if you're interested in that sort of thing. If not, maxing Plethora of Ore and Bismuth or acarite should be a good start. Mining fundamentals by itself is a nasty big node running at 60 points, but there's a lot going on in here, with big perception bonuses and in the end, mounted gathering. I kind of drank the Kool-Aid though, and I believe that quality materials is both the short and long-term path to victory, so I'm tempted to mostly leave this tree alone early on, aside from unlocking it of course. I feel mostly the same for the overload tree, and like Herbalism, later on I'll invest points into reducing the cooldowns. So my main recommendation is to also focus on skill and a higher chance of obtaining nullstone from the basic ore bismuth. Then I might go for mining fundamentals for the all-around perception and mounted mining, and then move on to overloads. Skinning is going to be in sort of a different situation. Traditionally, the materials from skinning fall off on prices much faster than mining and herbalism. After all, you can't hyperspawn herbs and ore. But leatherworking is also a very thirsty profession, demanding different materials from skinning, and thanks to the profession changes with the dependence on rank 3 materials, the skinning market ought to have better longevity. So let's take a look at the specs. Tanning is the basic tree, and it gives bonuses to skinning and lets you specialize in either leather or chitin. Those are the 2 basic materials you'll find with rare hides and carapaces to randomly find. Harvesting is where you'll go for increased perception to collect these rare hides or carapaces, and luring is back for both the regular skinner seeking out the exotic materials or the type who's just looking for some sort of equivalent to the obsidian cobra skin daily farm from Dragonflight. Let's dive a little bit deeper into some build examples. For overall volume, you maybe want to max out the base trait for tanning, followed by your favorite thing to skin, either leather or chitin. Two cool things you get out of here include the Sharpen Your Knife ability. It's got a 1-hour cooldown and up to 3 charges, and it guarantees your next skin to be a rare hide or carapace, ensuring that at least every 3 or so hours, it's going to be in your interest to be out and about skinning. Also, here are the refining skills to back you up when you're carrying too much rank 1 material and you want to make it into, like, I don't know, something a bit more desirable in the market by refining it into rank 2s, maybe 3s if you have that much. If you want rare and creature-specific materials, harvesting is the place to go. You want to go straight for Trophy Taker and max it out for a big boost to perception. Also in this tree are specs to create fishing lures and to gather extra meat from mobs with an ability similar to Sharpen Your Knife. And neither of those are really my thing personally, and they're a small boost to perception down these paths, but the way I see it, it's not big enough that I would suggest this over something else. Luring is going to be a popular tree, especially for folks with an alt army looking for something to do. But the other parts of the tree, like Impressive Infuser, let skinners not just farm rare materials like herbalists and miners, but can target them. But let's go over how to quickly get an alt the skills they need to craft and use epic lures. 10 points into Luring and 40 points into Train Tracker will do it. As for where to get the knowledge points, well, 24 points can be found from profession treasures in the zones, 15 can be earned by using the 200 Acuity that you first get and buying a skill book in Kazalgar. Another 15 can be bought from a skill book in Ajkahet using the Kej currency. There's also 3 knowledge you get per week from the weekly quest, and maybe another 5 to 8 from just skinning each week. It's pretty easy, so if your alts are bored, there's something for them to do each day. The question is if the superb beast fang you get is worth it. This is used to make the set gear from leatherworking, but that's about it. So it could be that the Obsidian Cobra Skin equivalent will appear in a future season when more gear is introduced, and this will influence what you decide to do with your alts. I've been saying this for months now, and boy, I hope I'm right. Gathering is poised to win big in the War Within. The majority of profession items, consumables, and gear will depend on high quality or rare materials as an integral part of bringing out the best in these crafts, and you are going to overcharge for it. So if you don't mind, leave some comments, feedback, and questions in case I missed anything, because hey, we're all here to help each other out. That's the end of this way too long of a guide, and I'm thankful you made it to the end. Like the video and share it with others if it was cool. Subscribe for more coverage and catch me live on Twitch. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.